Hi witches, thank you for being here, thank you for watching. Today we've got a post on Magick books. I thought I'd make a video on this so I could tell you easily what I thought of each book. I've picked 3 books that are quite different to each other, and I thought they might be helpful for you in your practice if you don't have them already. One of these you've seen me refer to a few times over the years, and the other 2 perhaps not quite so much. The first one is a classic. It's called Spells and How They Work by Janet and Stuart Farrar, who were very prominent in Wiccan society. I'm not sure if they are still alive. I think Janet is, but possibly not Stuart. They were teachers and authors, and I think about 75% of Wiccans in Ireland and Northern Ireland can trace their magical roots back to Janet and Stuart. I absolutely love this book. It is 34 years old now, and I've had it for about 24 or 25 years. I go back to this book time and time again, if I'm looking something up, if I just want to check that I've got something right, and also just for enjoyment. I feel like this book is what I call a grounder. I read it and then I feel like it really grounds me. It sort of really roots me in my practice. I feel like I'm sort of like back on track, and I feel enthusiastic about my path again. So I guess that's quite a good review for a book. It's very much concerned with spell casting. So I would say it's a study really, because there are lots of examples of magical workings they have done, what the outcome was, what kind of angle they were going from when they did the spell, information, how they sort of worked with energies rather than against them. And I will be mentioning this book in my Hexeride video. So these 3 books that I mention are quite relevant to everything that I talk about in the Hexeride video, but particularly this one. So I might mention a couple of things here that don't make too much sense to you now, but again, once you've seen the Hexeride video, they will. So for example, they go into the levels of reality in this book, which is central to magic. So they look at do spells work, how and why, the ethics of spell casting. They look at spells to solve problems, what happens when you come unstuck when you're doing spell work. They look at love magic and sex magic, again, some of the ethics around these things, what they personally think of these things. And yeah, it's just a really, really delightful book. I do go back to it again and again and again. So I can't really recommend this one highly enough. I think it will be very, very relevant to you guys. I think it would be a good book for you to have in your collection. The next book is much older. It's The Complete Book of Spells, Ceremonies and Magic by Magick Gonzalez Whippler. The first edition of this book was actually published in 1978. So this, I think this book you could sort of read from beginning to end. It would make a lot of sense to do that in the way that it's set out, and also it's a study, and so it makes sense to have an order that sort of lends itself to the tuition they're giving in that book. But this is very much a reference book, so look something up in the back and then go to the page and then read about it. So it's a lot more sort of based on ceremonial magic and high magic. If nothing else, it gives you a feel for those things. So I feel like this is a knowledge filler book. There's a lot in it that won't actually be of any practical use to you per se, I shouldn't think, unless you are a ceremonial magician, and I don't know that. But I do think that this is a really, really helpful, useful book. It explains concepts such as sympathetic magic. It talks about the astral plane or the astral level, which again is central to magic and something I talk about in our next Hexeride video. So there's lots of pictures and diagrams and drawings and tables. It's a really, really helpful book in that respect. In the one that I showed you previously by Janet and Stuart Farrar, there's a few sort of photographs of them taking part in magic. But yeah, this one has got all sorts of diagrams and text and Yeah, lots of things. Not all of it is useful to me in my path and my magical practice, but it does give me an understanding of the world that I am walking in and walking through. So very, very helpful. It looks at things like Kabbalah, science in magic. It starts with the origins of magic with early man and comes through to modern day. Because the first edition was written in 1978, there is some outdated bits and bobs in there, like they talk about white magic versus black magic, which is quite sort of very black and white. I think that this is probably much more modern. Written in 1990, this is probably more relevant for today in how we look at things and how we think about things, but this certainly gives you sort of the history of witchcraft and the history of magic and does fill in those sort of gaps, so you can feel the evolution from that book to this book. It also looks at magic from around the world. It refers to rites in Haiti and Mexico, Latin America, North America, Europe. It's been a very long time since I've read this, so I don't know whether there is anything that's sort of outdated and not appropriate, but I just still find this a very, very helpful book for the things that I personally need to look up and check. So for example, if I'm explaining sympathetic magic, I'll look that up because I know there's a description in here, and then that's really, really helpful. It's a very interesting read. I would still recommend it. I don't know where I bought this. I think it was, if I remember rightly, it was in just a little bookshop in a little village. Because it says £2 on the back, £2. I certainly think if I'd bought this secondhand in Glastonbury, it would have cost me at least £10. So this was one of those little gems that I just found somewhere that I picked up. Had it for years, but yeah, I really, really like this book. It's definitely still got its value and worth having if you can find a copy. So the third book is A Folk Witchcraft, a guide to lore, land and the familiar spirit for the solitary practitioner by Roger J. Horne. So very, very different energy to the last two books. It's less concerned with high magic and ceremonial magic and is more looking at simple sort of magical practices that would fall under the traditional witchcraft with a capital T and W umbrella. So this was published in 2019, so much more modern. It's got beautiful illustrations in it. Let me find one. So things like this, little sketches. There's lots of helpful information in it here on how to do things. So for example, conjuring spirits or making puppets. And it's concerned with things like mountain, rock and cave spirits, which is really, really nice. So it looks at animal spirits, land spirits. It's got all kinds of rites in here for the Sabbats, for conjuring spirits, for dedications, to connect with the old ones. And it's just so simple. So it'll give you a simple rite for doing something. And even if you don't want to use that particular rite, it really gives you a feel for how you could write your own. So yeah, very instructional, this book. So very different in terms of like magical theory, which the other two books fall into. This is a lot more instructional, but it has got the feel of the traditional witchcraft tradition. So a lot more specific, but would give you loads of great ideas, really. It's just so simple and practical, this book. And like all things, you don't have to take everything. You can just take the bits that you like. So it's got the Theban alphabet in here, which is helpful, and also a poem at the back called A Witch's Wren. So I really, really like this book, but for very, very different reasons, and it does have very, very different energy to these sort of old-fashioned sort of magical theory and magical practice type books. So together, put them together, and that kind of gives you everything you need. So I appreciate you might not be a traditional witch, this might not have much relevance to you, but it does give you the basis of oh, I want to conjure a familiar, how do I do that? So you could have a look at that and you could adapt it to your own magical practice. So yeah, tell me what you think. I'd be interested to know if any of you have got this one, Clearly I stumbled across it myself just completely randomly many years ago. I haven't actually seen it anywhere else. Like I said before, I've done, this is the second filming of this video, so I might have said it before, but if I got this in Glastonbury secondhand, it would have been at least £10. But yeah, for £2, that was an absolute steal. But yeah, let me know if you've got that one. I suspect some of you might have this one because I've mentioned it before, and I know at least one of you has got Roger J. Horne's book. But yeah, let me know. I'll put the information on these books in the comments below, so that if you want to order them, you can. But yeah, really enjoyed them. Okay, thanks ever so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the 13th, where we discuss the mechanics of magic. All right, love and blessings. Bye.